Good afternoon, good evening, all of you joining in, taking time out to joining this exclusive webinar. I am glad on behalf of investmentguruindia.com, We Invest, and personally I am quite excited to hearing to one of the veterans of mutual fund industry. Someone who has seen 27 plus years of experience into distribution, management of mutual funds. He has seen, unprecedented times before as well. I mean, going back into the hindsight, 2000 dot-com bubble crisis, 2000 bubble crisis, 2013 taper tantrum crisis, 2008 the global financial crisis. I think we are having accepted the fact that we are living under unprecedented times, and there are questions on top of the mind of some of our investors, some of our colleagues who are joining in. COVID-19 has affected a lot of countries. Half of the population is under lockdown. I mean, unprecedented word is a cliche now, and everyone knows how it has affected themselves personally. It has affected businesses. It has affected professional careers. It has affected investments. The intent of this program is to address some of the top burning questions as a retail individual investor. How am I going to survive this crisis in terms of the investments that I have made? And more importantly, how am I going to achieve my financial goals, which I had put forth as part of my financial journey? Needs no introduction. Please welcome Mr. Swaroop Mohanty, CEO, Mirae Asset India Mutual Fund, one of the most successful, young, dynamic professionals, heading one of the largest AMCs in India, having a global parentage in terms of Mirae operating multinationally. Please welcome him. And Swaroop, we welcome you. Thank you for joining in for us on this call, and we're extremely delighted to have you.
Thank you so much, Nirav, for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be talking to you and to your clients. These are times when we should talk, because at the end of the day, in every discussion, we go back learning. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tapas. It's good to be with all of you. So I'll speak for 15 minutes. That's the time allotted. So without wasting time, can I start my small presentation, if it's okay with you, Nirav?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you for your kind introduction. So let me just start on what I have to say. Yeah. So, investing, as you rightly said, of course, when a crisis like this happens and then a medical crisis like this happens, the challenges are there in front of us. And within that, we'll see whether these are challenges or, we can find some things out of it which could be positive. But whenever we are being asked to talk in this interesting time, is the screen visible? Because sometimes it's okay, no? Nirav?
Yes, it is visible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, just checking before because sometimes see the equity markets look volatile. That itself is an understatement, I think. But the debt markets have started looking volatile too. Normally, when people like Nirav and I come to you in the past, they would say that allocate assets on all sides so that if one goes down, the other will save you. Nothing is saving anybody right now. And in that times when you are asked to speak, you really don't know what to say. But I'll make an attempt, and my humble request is, if some of it makes sense, it's okay. If something does not make sense, please do get back to me, because that's where we learn and we take back and improve ourselves. So, what you have to understand is both are talking about the same economy, underlying is the same Indian economy that we are talking about, both sides going volatile, and we'll go a little deeper into it. And in every volatility, let me tell you, in every volatility lies a challenge. And with every volatility comes an opportunity, something which we'd like to look at from both sides' perspective. Let's look at some of the challenges first. And because of paucity of time, I'll look at the broad ones, because the first one which hit us was across market on the equity side. There's been a destruction, Normally, when there is a destruction, there's a flight to safety, and you try to own the large companies, which is the Nifty 50. The Nifty 50 down 30-35% is something which does not happen often. Nirav talked about me seeing some of the volatility or some of the crises in the past, but 30-35% down. Mid caps obviously crashing, and right now, if you speak, the mid caps have fallen less than the large caps. And the small caps obviously have been destroyed to around 64 rupees. Your 100 rupees is down to 64. Your large caps is down to 84. So that is the kind of fall that we are speaking at this moment. And then to add to over and above that, there is this credit squeeze which is happening on the debt side. And let's reflect on both of them and get a little deeper into and the effect of this, and especially on the equity side. And when we talk about long-term part of it, your 5-year return is already gone. That's how severe just a 45-day fall has impacted investments across. And then when that kind of a fall happens, obviously it warrants a bit of a discussion, a bit of a deeper meaning of the whole thing, which I'll address a part in this presentation. And of course, at the end, if we can get into the question answer. So there are questions which comes into every mind. Should we stop investing in equity markets and just leave? Or, when you look at the broad investment, or we go a little deeper and understand what it is. Because when we look at investments, the word proper investments and the factors that affect investment is your asset allocation or your product selection. Then we go into the market returns or how the market behaves. The market is always affected by policy decisions by the regulators or the government. Over and above that, how long will you invest is always a question, and your returns or your wealth creation is dependent on the amount of time you have to invest. And then your job, your employment, which Nirav sort of chipped on in the beginning, and the duration of that earning and investment also affects us. And the last one is something which we talk about always, whether you're saving or investing. Of course, there are two different words. If they were one, then the dictionary would have one word. Since they are two, let me give you our view of why they are two. When we add a purpose to a saving, we call it investing, right? When you're investing with a goal in mind, when you're putting your money with a goal in mind, you convert your savings to investing is the way we define the two. When you look at all these factors and you look at what is under your control or what is not under your control, the only two things that are under your control is the way you allocate your assets and whether you're investing with a purpose or not. These are the only two things that are under your control under any circumstance, whether it's COVID, non-COVID, or whichever way you look at it. What is a bit under your control is how long you will be employed and how long you can invest your money. That's also somewhat under your control. What is not under your control totally are the markets and any policy decisions that affect the market. Invariably, when we look at these two, we tend to discuss mostly these two parts, which are completely out of our control and normally do not reflect much on your asset allocation or your savings habit, And because finally, and that is enough. You can Google it. You don't need to ask me for this or find an answer on it. Your asset allocation actually defines your most of the wealth that is created. Things like where you invest, timing the market, and other factors like policy decisions and all do not affect much in the long run. In the long run, it is your asset allocation which defines, how much wealth you create or whether you are a successful investor or not. Just to take this forward, and Nirav started with the whole thing. I started my career in 94, 95, and I was immediately hit by the Harshad Mehta scam. Post that, there was this great Asian market crisis, which led to another slump. Post that, and that's when I became a mutual fund seller, and including a mutual fund serious investor, was the dot-com boom and the subsequent bust in 2000. And then came the biggest learning in our life is the financial meltdown post 2008. And now, as we speak, there is COVID-19. In my career of 25 years of being with the capital markets, I have seen 5 such occasions. And it's just 5 occasions in 25 years. That is one thing which I wanted to leave behind in every mind. The other part which we must understand is every crisis is different. And every crisis post that, the world upgrades very quickly to that crisis. Trust me, if there is another COVID-19, you will not see this volatility. The world would have upgraded to this very, very quickly. When you look at post 2008, 2009, it's not that financial companies have not come down, but you've not seen the kind of volatility that we had seen in during 2008, 2009. But I will reflect a little bit about the dot-com and the financial meltdown a little later. But please understand, every crisis is different. You get various opportunities and various challenges in every crisis, but bottom line is very difficult to sort of predict what has happened in that crisis could be also happen in this crisis. So the other part which I want to keep in mind in everybody's mind is this: 5 times such things have happened in 25 years. It's not often that we see this happening. Let's look at the two sides of what you can control and probably what you cannot control. What you cannot control are phases like the crude or the interest rates. We've already seen two interventions from our central bank and the interest rates globally, whether it's the US, Germany, Japan, any country, the interest rates are headed south, and where it will go is just a prediction. We do not know for sure, including the oil prices. The oil prices, because of it going down, India stands to benefit, is something which I don't need to explain. All of us know. The other part which is never under our control is the rupee or the currency. Across the globe, we are seeing destruction of the currency. So when you look at the factors which affect the capital market, which is oil, interest rates, and the currency, all the three are not under our control. And especially in emergencies like this, they just go loose across the horizon, across countries globally. There is no country which has not been affected by this. What we can do, and I just like to reflect on these two, and then we can go deeper into it post the question in the question answer session, is that I do believe we have two options here, and that's the $1,000,000 question. We can, it's our money, we are invested, it's our risk profile. We can agree to the risk profile, we may not, or we may not. We may agree to what's happening in the market and say, boss, this is, I've had enough, let me just sell and get away. That's also correct. It's your money at the end of the day. Or, with your permission, we'd like to stay invested and try to understand this situation a little further. Let's do that a bit, and then at the end, if you want to redeem, it's okay. Yeah. So when you look at the broad perspective, and this I'm talking about basic life, what is the basic challenge? And I'm very influenced by a behavioral finance writer, and he preaches a lot, and you must check him out, a gentleman called Carl Richards. He has put up a very life-changing thing for me in life in the form of a slide. He thinks there'll be a lot of noise. Look at COVID-19. There is so many things happening, so much of news coming. This is happening in this country, that is happening. In that, what he asks us to do is just select things that matter, and then go a step further. And within that, select things which you can control, and concentrate on one thing, that is things that matter and things that you can control. If I try to control currency prices, I cannot. Does it matter to me? Yes, it matters to me. It will affect me. But can I control it? No, I cannot. Thinking about currency, it can lead me 2-3 hours or maybe 2-3 days predicting currency movement, but I can't do anything about it. What I should do at this moment is to control my controllable and try and focus on things that matter, and within that, only those things that I can control. And within this entire period of COVID-19, I feel that there are two things that we can control. And I said, when you look at the factors affecting investing, the two things that can is under our control is, the first thing is asset allocation. That's the only thing that I can do. I can only predict my behavior. And when you look at assets, when we invest, we practically invest in these 5-6 areas, that is gold, property, equities, bonds, and cash. Gold, we just probably would have bought yesterday. That's the SIP date which financial planners have given us, that this is the day on the earth where gold you have to buy. It's a commodity. It is defined by demand and supply. Over the years, the demand for gold is the highest on Akshaya Tritiya, but the entire country does not care. They just go and buy gold at the peak of its price every year. When you look at property and you look at the holding period of property, typically it is 1, 2, 3 generations. And in every city, your father would have shown you one property. Maybe this was available at this price. I couldn't buy that price, and today's price is just unbelievably high. But when you look at both these, asset classes, these are, synonymous with generations of holding. Father's house is passed down to the son, of mother's gold is passed down to the daughter and the bahu, and that's how you create a long-term sort of relationship with these two asset classes in particular. When it comes to equity, we are probably the first or second generation people or generation of people buying equities. It's relatively a new asset class compared to gold and property to us. Hence, we might have questions which we do not have with gold and property. Somebody said on Akshaya Tritiya that this is the highest price, go and sell gold. No, that will be the most ridiculous statement to be made across this country. It will be considered highly inauspicious to sell gold on Akshaya Tritiya, but that's what one should do, because that's what attempts to do in equities. In bonds, we'll talk about bonds subsequently, and cash is the short-term holding that we have. But before we go further, and that's what 2000 taught me, is that I encountered risk for the first time. The amount of money I lost in the dot-com bust is probably I'll never lose again. My 10,000 became 2,000. And that's when I realized this is not a business of returns, this is a business of risk. Because two things can happen. You can take a lot of risk and expose yourself to financial uncertainties in these type of situations, or you can take very little risk and not participate at all. It depends on your risk profile. Both are right. But to achieve a good financial plan, a good knowledge of a risk profile, and participating in the markets in the right risk forum is the right way of achieving good financial experience, is what people normally go through. Understanding risk does not happen overnight. Investing is a journey, and you discover different types of risks over a period of time. Because when you look at markets, and if somebody were to be bothered about equity markets in November, December, trust me, nobody was. People were investing very easily. There are a lot of questions now. This entire pendulum reflects between greed and fear. When the market is euphoric, your fear is less. But when the markets come down now, your fear is highest. Is what is the reflection of this entire journey. Because when you look at asset classes, just forget which they are, but just see that the different colors are different asset classes. When you look at a journey, and I'm showing a journey of 2004 to 2019, you will not be able to see a single asset class which reflects a journey of any certainty, which gives you saying that this asset class gives you returns over a period of 15-20 years. So hence, this process of asset allocation, which diversifies your money across asset classes, is what is recommended by most planners. The other thing that one can do, and I'm running a little out of time, so I'll keep it short, is that the other thing which an opportunity like this gives is portfolio rebalancing. Because what it aims at doing is, suppose my equity portfolio, equity to debt was 70-30, and markets went up, say 30%, it would go up to 85-15. The equity would go up. The prudent thing to do is to shift equity to debt and bring it back to 70-30. That is what we call portfolio rebalancing. In market like this, when it has gone down by 30%, it would have come down to 55%, and your debt would have gone up to 45%. The prudent thing now, or the opportunity now that comes in front of you, is to shift a bit of debt into equity to bring it back to 70-30. That is what is the other thing that one can do in situations like this. So one has to stick to asset allocation, and there in times like this, when the asset allocation shifts out and forms different kind of assets because of movement of market, one needs to rebalance it. Because broadly, the India story remains intact. In a short run, we'll see some great effects of certain sectors. Pharma, FMCG, power and financials are what we think will be affected positively, while we all know airlines, hotels, and for some reason in situations like this, people become vegetarian. There is absolutely no scientific reason for being that, but it's a sentimental thing. So we think poultry, retail, and restaurants will get affected adversely. getting that a minute more. In situations like this, and let me show you 2008-9, when the market cap to GDP sort of plummets because the stock prices come down. Similar situation is now. Invariably, we see in those situations, there is a tendency to reverse to the mean post the situation is over. Trust me, you can debate when India will become 5 trillion. You cannot debate whether India will ever become 5 trillion. Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe COVID will affect it by a year or two. Maybe the 7-year journey will take 2 more years. But in 9 years, your 2.7 trillion economy is still poised to go to 5 trillion. Maybe a year or two delay because of this. But you cannot debate whether we are on that path. When it will become is the debate. India remains the youngest country in the world. Just compare us, our median age of 28 to Korea's 42. And that's our biggest advantage. One of the reasons, my personal opinion, why more Indians will live post this COVID is because of the youngness of the Indian country and the fact that the upper middle class and the middle class continue to rise in the country gives the consumption of great boost going forward. All this stay intact at the end of the day. One last slide, and that's the most important slide that we feel, because when we look at COVID-19 or any such crisis, we feel the value of the company gets eroded. When a portfolio is constructed, it is constructed on two parts. That is the value of the company and the price at which it is bought. Let's assume that the companies get affected and 10% of the value gets eroded. But the stock price has already fallen by 30%. Hence, we believe that this 20% is the margin of safety. And when the margin of safety increases, the risk of investing actually decreases. That's what I wanted to leave behind. It's a great time because some large companies are available at very good prices. Hence, we believe at this moment, one has to look at investing or taking opportunity of these large companies. Sometimes when we are SIP investors, we tend to stay away from lump sum investing. These are good times for lump sum investing also. Just one last thought, because it's very pertinent, because our large cap, and I'm giving just this example because it's so pertinent to this, because our large cap was launched in 2008 at an NAV of 10. And in 2009, the market plummeted exactly like it has now. The NAV had come down to 5.4. Your 1,000 rupees invested in 2008 is 37,536 today at a return of 11.6. But your 1,000 rupees, which took the advantage of 5.4, is 68,495 today. That's the position we are in. There is a possibility of making a difference in returns, and the return between 1 year in a 12-year horizon was 7%. I'm not saying 7% is possible. I'm saying these are good process, and this is what is a possibility. That's all I wanted to say. Nirav, any questions I'm willing to take? Sorry, I've overshot my time by 4 minutes. So
no, great. No, great. I think it was meaningful as an investor, as a financial planner, yes, but an investor as well, because a lot of our investors are, millennial crowd. They have not probably seen 2008 global financial crisis, let alone the 2000.com bubble crisis. My question, at the top of the mind that comes in as an investor, there is always an emotion and bias attached to my investments. Now we have financial planners, we have, AMCs, we have mutual fund experts, all of them coming to us and saying that, okay, it is the best time to invest. But how do I disassociate my emotion part and take rational decision during extreme greed and fear situations?
Especially since you mentioned the millennial, see, this is not an easy path. Okay. Finally, investment is very mathematical. The less emotional you become, the better the investment experience is. This is easier said than done. Okay. I am very influenced I hold Nick Murray as a very good financial writer. And very early in my life, I read a book where he said, you are not born with courage, you practice courage. Right. And it's a very interesting thing because, I was a fearless mutual fund seller in 2000. Okay. The conviction which I used to sell then, let me tell you, it's not conviction anymore. It's probably more maturity. But in 2000, I invested dramatically in the tech funds, and my 10,000 became 2,000. That's when was my first sort of brush with risk. Then I realized, okay, I need to know my risk better. Yes. Okay. In 2008-9, and that's very important because that's when I realized that, and I was slightly older then, and now I can, due to 2008-9, I am, right now I have the ability of holding allocation because in 2008-9, 60% of industry SIP stopped, right? Because of a very similar
True.
situation. It was probably worse then, slightly worse than here. 60% of industry SIP stops, but people who held on in just 1 year time not only got back all returns, actually were positive by 12-13% on overall portfolio, right? So that taught me holding allocation. See, this is a journey. Investment is a journey. If I were, the only mistake that I've made is that at age 28, 29, I didn't run an investment of 500 rupees a month. If I'd have done that much, today I would be financially free. So starting early is something which millennials should know. Every money, like I showed, 1,000 rupees can become 68,000 rupees. So don't even underestimate 1,000 rupees in the stock market. But I agree with you that it is not easy. It comes with experience. If I would not have gone through 2000, I wouldn't have learned risk. If I wouldn't have gone through 2008-9, I wouldn't have learned the bright part of holding allocations.
We expect that 2020 will help a lot of people to become financially independent, at least put them on that path eventually that they become.
If you ask me very honestly, I want this period to elongate a little bit more so that, I can take benefit of it. That's my learning of 2008-9. And I'm talking,
because,
see, my equity portion is down 30%.
True.
Okay, I'm along with your investor who have lost money. It's not that I'm sitting here without losing. I've lost.
True. Very true. Very true. 100%. I think we have someone who has raised hand. If you can just type in the chat box, we can help take that question or your query. Meanwhile,
which book you recommend of Nick Murray? So Nick Murray has a lot of books, but the book which has changed my life is on being a great wholesaler. My counterpart in the US is called a wholesaler, and it's about how to become a good wholesaler. He's written, starting from how to approach selling to how to dress. He's given me a Bible, and that's what has changed me in my life. And two chapters which have really affected me is, one is creating elephants, because elephants, I'm a wildlife guy. I'm born to two zoologists, so it comes genetically. In the relationship between a mahount and an elephant is what he had explained, because if the relationship is good, the child of the elephant goes to the mahount's kids. It's a lifelong experience. But if the mahount goes against the elephant, the first person who kills the elephant, the mahount, is the elephant. Okay, so that's how it is. So you can create a good relationship, but making a relationship comes with a lot of skill. And of course, practicing courage, which defines all of us, because markets are, what they are. So you have to have courage to be in these markets.
Fantastic. Great. I think a pertinent question on top of the mind of most investors, be it DIY, be it through financial advisors, someone who invests through We Invest as well, is that, should I stop my SIP? A lot of communication has already been gone. We have reached out, but then there's always a question. Let that market recover, and then I will start my SIP. Should I continue my SIP?
See, okay, very important question. It's a pertinent question in these times, because we are talking about 3-4 years of SIP returns being negative now. Okay, just to put things in perspective, why do you do SIP? I mean, you want to participate in the market on a continuous basis. You want to buy the high and you buy the low. That is what we call the rupee curve averaging. My favorite statement is, volatility is not a friend of an SIP investor. It is the best friend of the SIP investor. These are markets for SIP investors. These are not markets for, those risk takers who want to time the market. The units at which you are collecting the NAV at is almost 30% less than what you were collecting in December, right? As an SIP investor, I would want this to continue for at least 6 more months. Then if you do, I'm sure all of you are better mathematicians than I am. I'm a pathetic mathematician. Just do that calculation. You don't need 30-40% upside to create wealth anymore. Between 23rd and today, the NAV is up by 8%. So the NAV I collected or the units I collected on 23rd was 8% lower than what I'm collecting now. I wish that 23rd NAV comes back. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
you don't need much of upside if you've collected more units. It's just pure mathematics. So I leave that decision to you whether you will add more or not. But Nirav, it's a commitment to you, to all the investors here. Let us do this call after 1 or 2 years on this same discussion that we are having on SIP, and I will come back and answer. Don't
Fantastic.
leave the SIP. You need not put more money. That is your lookup. But my humble request, don't stop your SIPs unless there are cash flow problems. That is a separate issue. But if you have the money and you are an SIP investor, don't stop. And I'll come back and we'll do this call after a year or two.
Fantastic. That's extraordinary commitment from someone who has seen 3 decades plus of mutual funds talking his heart out. Very, very pertinent point. As financial advisors, Swaroop, we always recommend asset allocation, and as part of that asset allocation, liquidity and safety of capital that we invest becomes of utmost importance, and that needs to be factored in while doing asset allocation. Now, pre-COVID and post-COVID, do you see liquidity as a factor in asset allocation? Will be stressed more? And do you think that we should plan in a better format again? Because looking at the debt funds as well, do you think liquidity needs to be managed more efficiently?
Yeah, I think liquidity is a very important part of asset allocation. The realization has come in COVID, right? Mm-hmm. The importance of liquidity probably will start being faced by everybody because of what they're going through now. I'll give you a small example. We closed our mid-cap fund, and it's a very decent mid-cap fund, the Mirae Asset Emerging Blue Chip, in 2016. We are talking about liquidity in debt today. We raised the issue of liquidity in mid-caps in October 2016. Mm-hmm. Okay, you try to sell a bit of stocks. I don't want to get into stock specific, but for stocks below 150 and all, the liquidity issue is there in the equity markets also. Mm-hmm. I don't know why it is not talked much, right? Mm-hmm. So the fact is, when you look at the equity and the debt market, the equity screen is something which a lot of investors would have seen because it's a retail market. But the debt market, which is a wholesale debt market, is not seen by many. If you see both the screens, the red and blue flash in both the screens. The volatility is there in both the screens. In fact, the liquidity of the debt market is more than the equity market. Mm-hmm. Right, look at it. I mean, the FIs have sold 10 billion, the DIs have bought 6.5 billion. So just 3.5 billion, which is 30,000-40,000 crores only, have brought this market down by 30%. That is how liquidity plays out on the equity side. But when it comes to asset construction or the portfolio construction, I hope and pray that the realization of the importance of liquidity is taken. And I feel this COVID-19, once people see, nothing happens till it does not happen to you. Statement in life. Okay. Now that we are going through certain realizations, these factors will become ingrained in the portfolio, which otherwise were there but not discussed.
Okay. One question from Aditya coming in. Mid-cap or a small-cap fund, which is better right now to invest in a 5 to 7 year horizon? You just touched upon the mid-cap fund.
Okay. So, see. This is a very interesting situation. Okay, every portfolio or every time you want to buy something, you want to buy something good at a good price. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm just asking that question back to Aditya. A good company, which is a large company, is available at 30% discount. Okay. And there is a company which has a lot to prove, is available at 40% discount. What will you buy? Okay, so when a large company is available at this kind of prices, my humble request is you don't need much risk. The risk taken in buying that company, which is already proven over a 20-30 year horizon and available to you at these prices, is a far better bet than a smaller company which has a lot to prove. Upside could be there, but from a risk of investment perspective, I would buy a larger company or a large cap over a small cap today. See, personally, I don't invest in small caps. We don't have a small cap. So I would like to refrain from giving comments on small caps. I don't have the, personally, if you ask me, I don't have the risk profile to buy small caps.
Okay.
I don't need, because of my plan needs 8 to 9% return. So why take that kind of risk is where I come from. But that aside, if great companies are available at these prices, the first thing to do, I mean, if a great car is available at a cheap car price, why not take that? Or would you suppose, I mean, I'm just, a big, German car is available at the price of, say, an Indian sedan, what would you buy? Even if the Indian sedan is available free.
Very true. Very true. I think it ties back to what is your risk profile, what is the return expectation that you have in your portfolio. Very true. I think just a follow-up question, since you mentioned the emerging blue chip fund, of course, now it is categorized as a large and mid cap under the SEBI rules. Do you see that lump sum investments also opening up into that fund, given that the market has already corrected? Currently, as we know,
Look at it from the fund perspective. It might look close to you, but it is not closed. Okay. The fund closed for lump sum in October 2006. The AUM was 2,200. Before COVID, the fund was 10,000. Okay. So in the SIP form, it is collecting money. So the fund is not closed.
Very true. Okay. Yes.
But just going back to why we closed the fund, we closed the fund in 2016 because we felt that liquidity, especially towards the bottom end of mid caps, is not there. That was our view in 2016. And please understand, it was 2,000 crores then. Subsequently, our view on liquidity has not changed much. And if you look at the 10,000 crores, the mid cap part is 5,000.
Very true.
Right. So our responsibility lies with our existing investors, and we feel that we would like to, take in that much money which the underlying stocks can absorb, and that is the amount of money we are taking. Because finally, the investor has to get a good experience. So we don't see that opening at all, unless there are the liquidity in the market expands dramatically, and instead of the 35, 36 mid cap stocks we start liking 50.
Very true. Very true. Well, there you have it. So a classic example of starting an SIP, probably in a Mirae Asset emerging blue chip fund, to stay and remain invested for a longer period of time.
Today it's getting good NAVs. So, and that's for every fund, not just Mirae Asset emerging blue chip.
Right. Again, one of the pertinent points, I think you just mentioned, do you recommend large cap or a small cap at this juncture? I think you touched upon that point. It again ties back to one's own asset allocation, one's own portfolio construction, and what is the return expectation that one is looking at. So I'll just move on to the next question. Sort of there's a lot of talk about international funds as well from a geographical perspective, especially also dollar, appreciating against the rupee, the currency getting stronger. Do you think there is enough incentive for an Indian retail investor to diversify some portion of his money into international assets?
Today the global markets are not isolated to each other. It's not that market will have something and will. So if the opportunity of getting some great companies in the form of a portfolio are there, one should buy. Why not? I mean, it's just broadening the investment universe. It's fantastic if one can own some of those large companies, and especially when you look at some of the sectors that are there abroad, those sectors are not available in India. Some of the stocks or the industries that you'll get there will not get in India. So when you look at the totality of investing, if one is getting the opportunity, I would definitely recommend investing. Though I personally have not yet got the opportunity to invest. But given tomorrow, why won't one like to own some of those large companies globally? Definitely.
True. One of the pertinent questions is that today we know that about 3% of India's population is investing into mutual funds. AMFI, mutual fund, market participants, distributors, financial planners have done a great job. Mutual Fund Sahi campaign, has helped penetration levels go down deeper. What do you think as a millennial crowd, as someone who is just starting off his career, how he can, embrace mutual funds as a lifelong, financial journey and plan his financial independence through mutual funds?
Two things. One is that 3% that you see is based on the total population, while we are allowed to take
True.
money only from PAN numbers. Okay. So when you look at the population of penetration within
The
PAN
universe
number,
becomes
it's
small.
very high. Okay.
True.
Secondly, I think, see, what's the beauty of mutual fund? The mutual fund has products across risk profile, catering to every age group of investors, right? One can form a portfolio of your choice, and you will get a scheme which will cater to you from across the 44 fund houses that are there on display in India. Yeah, that is the beauty of funds. You know, when you form your asset allocation and you form your overall portfolio with a goal, because how does it work? I mean, it first works with going to an advisor. The advisor and you sit down, you form certain purposes and form certain goals. After that, you form a plan on this based on your risk profile. And after that plan, it comes to selection of funds. Right. So the more important thing, and especially for the young, if they can form a good plan or why they are investing, finding where to invest is the easier part. Invariably, people go the other way. I ask everybody, do you have a favorite medicine? And people say, boss, what are you asking? If you don't have a favorite medicine, do you start, okay, let me have a combi plan. Then I go and say, is there a body pain? It doesn't work. First there is a body pain, then you go to combi plan, right? Similarly, first there is a plan, then you come to a fund. I might have a great fund, but you may not need it, right? If you are invested in that, you will have a very bad investment experience because it is not what you need.
True.
So once you have the plan, which is primary, where to invest is the easier part. And so I request everybody to first find where you are going. Then whether you will take the train or the aircraft or you will take the road, that becomes easier.
True. Sailesh is asking if there is any sector which you recommend in this scenario or any sector that should be avoided in the current COVID situation.
Yeah, I think one, we try to stay away from sector specific, but any country, if you see going forward or any point of time, the pillars that will take the country forward, any country, one is of course banking, one is healthcare, and the other one is consumption. These are the 3-4 pillars on which any country is based on, right? The other one is manufacturing. So these 4 pillars that form the fulcrum of any economy. At this moment, the past returns of healthcare would entice you to buy healthcare or pharma stocks because those have given some outstanding returns. But again, when we mutual funds stand up, we say that past performance have got nothing to do with the future. So if you ask me personally, I would not buy. My healthcare investments or the position which Mirae Asset took in healthcare or pharma was 2-3 years ago, which has played out already. So if you go by past return, that becomes very good. But please don't. There are some fantastic opportunities in banking and consumption which you cannot miss. Stay away from discretionary spending places. Stay away from those. Gems, jewelry, hotels, I think would something which would be affected in the near term for sure.
There is an increased, demand, so to say, from passive fund investing as well. So typical our active versus passive debate. Which side of the coin are you? And if not, what are the benefits and things that one should take care while investing?
Nirav, this has been such a learning experience for me, this active versus passive. I've been a blatant active seller. I've been a blatant supporter of active investment. If you Google me, you will see me arguing for it. But the last 2-3 years have changed my perspective completely. Earlier, you could ask active or passive. From this year, it is active and passive, right? I'll give you a small example. Let's say, suppose you are a large cap investor in the mutual funds, right? If you're a large cap investor in mutual funds purely because of the benchmark, you will catch Nifty 50. But when you look at some of the large companies available to you in the next 50, and you combine an active in large cap and with a passive in next 50, you catch the top 100 stock. So it's a combination which will give you a better result. two things happen with a combination. You bring down the cost of funds, and allow me to say that. And then secondly, going forward, once the passive industry evolves, though the word is passive, there is a lot of active thinking that goes into forming those passive funds. And that will emerge. You will see a lot of bundling happening, a lot of fresh ideas coming out. So from here on, if you bundle the two, you can form, and see, when the market is one way, no, secular, probably the passives will go ahead. But when the markets become inefficient, like now, the active fund managers come into play. These are great times for stock picking. Okay. So, but you do not know which will happen when. So, write both of them in a proportion in an asset allocated way. I think from here on, it is active and passive. It cannot be in isolation. Pure passives, I think the next 1 year, my opinion, I can be wrong, is that the actives will outplay. But the passives had outplayed last 1 or 2 years. Right. So why not take the benefit of both?
True. I think over the years, when Mirai was launched, everyone was keen, wanting to understand the global parentage, trying to track the funds. We have seen a consistent performance, and the word I mentioned is superior risk-adjusted returns, which is more critical. Yes, from the Mirai's equity portfolios. And please tell us about the fund's philosophy. I mean, I as a student,
now look at that on the debt side also. It's my humble request. Okay, I think
yes,
the debt side also
it is.
Last 2 years, in spite of so much happening in the market, I think we remained isolated from all that. It just shows that there is a certain thinking in the fund, and the thinking is very simple. We believe it's a business of simplicity and continuity. And when it comes to fund management, we stick to things which we can do. And we are very clear that irrespective of the opportunity in the market, if we cannot do something, we will not do it. As simple as that. So when you look at a product basket and go before categorization also, we were one fund per category, and whether you read about me in my print or you read about Mr. Nilesh Surana, we have never aspired to complete the entire product basket. We have certain strengths and we have certain beliefs. In some areas where we do not have strength or we don't believe in that, we do not get into that. Globally, we are a fully invested fund, so we remain fully invested. We can talk about the virtues of being fully invested versus cash investing, and it can be an endless discussion, but we've seen that there are virtues of being fully invested. We believe asset allocation happens at your end or the investor end. If you give us money to buy any asset class, we'll buy it today. Typically, when is the time to buy an asset class is when you have the money. That's what we believe in. But the key to all this is consistency. The key to all this is risk-adjusted return. If you see, and this is something which Crisil told us, I didn't know, that we are probably the diversified portfolio in the market. We don't over-allocate to particular stocks, excepting the focus fund, which is there by category or by design. For us, 4-5% is a very large allocation that would have happened due to valuation more than us purchasing. I think I'm very proud and happy that our fund management team has been always ready to give 40-50 good stories in every portfolio, and that is all that matters. At all points of time, we've never given out market calls or anything. We've always said that at all points of time, we have the capability of giving you 40-50 good stories. Sometimes some story takes time to play out. Sometimes calls also go wrong, but over the period of time, you have to have the ability to swiftly correct your mistakes and not repeat them again. That's key to fund management. And that is what has led to this. We are just 12 years in this industry, so not very long, but our first objective is to complete 15 years of track record. That is our objective number one. Once we complete 15 years, we'll probably stand in front of everybody and say, yes, we are capable of handling long money. But I'm happier to tell you that, in the last 2-3 years, which have been extremely testing years for the debt market, our funds have stood out okay. And we have not seen many accidents on that part. And then when you look at both pillars, they are beginning to look okay now. And that gives us a lot of satisfaction. Because finally, this business is about investors. We are everything due to the investors, and if investors can have a good investment experience with us, a lot can happen with our existing investors. they can come back and reward us enough. We don't have to go far outside this universe at all. The key is to keep them happy and give them a good investment experience. That's all that matters.
Yes, yes. I think enough communication has already, gone to the investors after that, one fund closing down their schemes. I think as an industry perspective, we believe as a financial advisors that the industry is intact, the industry story is intact. If you can just shed light on, that debacle and how does it impact, the overall industry?
See, this is not something which is new to the industry. If I go back and give you our own story, and I'd like to be a little honest on this, don't take me otherwise. When we started in 2008, and probably the worst time to start a business, we ourselves went through a crisis. We had to shut our business for 2 years practically because of what happened around us and restart in 2010. So my first and only learning in life is I never conclude on anything. A decision has been taken by a pedigreed fund house. It's not an easy decision to take. Let some time play out on that and then let them communicate further. I'd like to leave it at that. Having said that, when you look at this entire category, and this is something which we have, you can read us up on this, we have always mentioned one simple statement that credit risk is permanent, market risk is temporary. That's why we've never had a credit risk fund, because there are some things which are not there for us to take in the market. If we falter in any one of our schemes, the repercussions on us are pretty severe, and we are aware of that. So that's why I said more than what we can do, we are aware of what we will not do ever, because these are not spaces available to us. Right or wrong, I'm nobody to comment. I can't play the victim on that. This is the reality, and you build business on that. That is lesson number one. It's not that, to answer some of the questions, is not that small cap is a bad category. But by design of that particular category, a 10 rupees can be rupees 7. Now the question I ask, is a Mirae Asset NAV at 7 acceptable to anybody? No, it is not acceptable. Right? So in spite of it being a great category, we cannot be in that category. That option is not there for us. So in a portfolio construct, these do's and don'ts are very clear. More than what you will do, invariably you make money by not doing a lot of things. Right? So abnormal times, certain abnormality happens, but that's not the end of the world. If you go back and check our history, we were hit in 2008. We shut shop for 2 years, right? And we restarted in 2010. That's for everybody to check. It's not.
And that takes a lot of courage as well. Since you've just started, building the business,
just imagine
shut it for 2 years.
6 months we had to shut shop. Okay, but yeah, I agree, and that's where the parentage comes in. And in that entire process, look at how many global names would have exited India. But we stood here. We thought we knew India is a good country to do business. And we restarted again. And then, to be fair to our investors, they gave us a second chance. And once somebody gets a second chance, we cannot falter on that.
Knowingly. And you have only come out stronger, going from strength
we know
to
what
strength.
not to do. We know what not to do.
Yes. Completely out of time, but I have a couple of questions on a personal side. We have a lot of students, budding entrepreneurs, on the call as well. As a business leader, what is that mantra for success? As a professional, what are the 2-3 things that you want us probably to keep that in our mind and be motivated at all times?
See, 2 things. One is the line of work we do. Please understand, the kick that one gets about making money for somebody who already knows how to make money, even in the form of salary, is a huge satisfaction in our line of work. When we look at money, the only thing that comes with money is integrity, right? And that I give my probably parentage that both my parents are professors in Bhubaneswar. And one thing I promised them at the beginning of the career is I will aspire to earn money, but I will pay my taxes always. Okay, because my father wanted me to do some other career. Just to say that even today he files my returns. Now he's telling, no, but it gives me a kick that this line gives us this incredible opportunity to build such phenomenal a good path in life and to earn tax paid life. Okay, and that's a big kick in life. And that so the criteria number one is integrity, and you have to practice integrity. Money gives you shortcuts every day in our office, and people think it is how to be successful. I say first survive. People who survive in our lines become successful. There are talented people who have not been able to survive. So tomorrow, whether I'll survive or not, is tomorrow. So each day at time. But this industry has given us a lot, and you may not believe, but when I started off, I was an introvert. For me, speaking was not easy, but it's given us so much, and then the satisfaction of investors when they call us and say, okay, your fund has given us this is a huge kicker in life, and that is what keeps us going. For the young, yes, financial services is a fantastic career path, but it's not an easy path. It's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of tenacity in trying to understand, because whatever you've learned can be wrong tomorrow. So unlearning something is something which comes of age, and more you unlearn, the better you become. That you are not the smartest person on earth, you should know from day one. Markets are smarter than you.
Wow. Great. Completely out of time. Let me take a moment to thank you, Swaroop sir. Thank you for joining in at such a short notice. Really grateful. As candid as you are always in all our interactions, and that is the simplicity with which you deliver your presentation and the thoughts, I think, is remarkable. You have decluttered a lot of questions, thoughts, my views that some of our investors may have, and going forward this will be published, so a lot of investors, analysts, and individuals will be benefited out of this. Thank you so much for joining in, and it was real pleasure. And we have a commitment to join the session next year, same time, to see our NAVs.
To all the SIP investors, no?
To all the SIP investors, to see our NAVs back where they were, and probably even higher, to have the returns.
We hope so. But thank you, Nirav. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate. I wish you all the best. These are good times for looking at opportunities. But take some of the failures in the right stride, and a lot can happen from here on.
True.
Thank you so much.
True. Yeah? Thank you, sir. Thank you.